I don't care.
It's going to make me look bad either way, so it
Not.
doesn't matter.
Probably not true.
I don't know if we
Huh?
can do that.
Oh, absolutely.
Probably put it in the right order, though.
Good morning and welcome.
In the right order.
Welcome to Phoenix Talks. My name is Kim Desatel. I'm the Director of Development. And we are so pleased to have you here today for another session of what we call Phoenix Talk. Today, our topic is environment. The Phoenix Talks is really a UW Green Bay campus initiative modeled and programmed for what we call the common theme. Our common theme this year is engaging in public life. The common theme is a year-long program to engage our campus as well as our community to learn and think together as a collective institution. There are numerous events planned around the campus revolving around that common theme of engaging in public life. I would like to go ahead and recognize Dr. Aaron Weinshank. Aaron, would you please kind of stand up? There you go. Aaron is faculty on staff here, and he is the individual that thought of the theme of engaging in public life, submitted it to the Common Theme Committee, and so that topic was carried forward, and he's involved in a lot of the planning this year. So how about a round of applause for Dr. Weinshank? Thank you very much. Public and Environmental Affairs Department. I need to put that shout out there as well, too. Today's events are modeled after what we know of as TED Talks, and really to bring us together to hear a little bit more intimately from local community leaders, as opposed to leaders that might be afar and folks that we don't know. Our speakers today are very highly regarded in the area of environment, in the area of environment, and they're both working very, very hard to make our community a better place. Just a little change in the lineup today. We did have two panelists. Two of our scheduled panelists had family emergencies and were unable to be here today. So just to kind of regroup and let you know who we have before you today, we have a very strong lineup. We have two strong panelists, smaller but mighty panelists. First of all, we have to my immediate right, Crystal Osman. Crystal is from downtown Green Bay and Old Main Street, so you'll hear a little bit from her today as well. And then we have Dr. John Caters. John is the chair of Natural and Applied Sciences. You're a stand-in for us today. Thank you very much. You as well as Sarah are graduates of the university. John, there's a little rumor out there about you that your blood actually runs green from being such a good Phoenix fan. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay,
Phoenix,
all right.
Phoenix Packers, it's all the same.
We'll go with that. We'll go with that. So here's the way in which we'll run today. We'll hear from each of them for about 10 minutes or so. We'd like to actually introduce yourselves, give us a little bit of background about yourself, and tell us a little bit about why it's important to work in the area of public service related to the environment. We'll follow up, and Dr. Weinshank will go ahead and moderate a Q&A. So we want you to think about your questions. We want you to probe our panelists a little bit. We want you to engage them in furthering their talk a little bit with our Q&A. And we'll kind of follow up and wrap up with that Q&A today as well. So thank you both for being here. John, if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and begin with you with an introduction. And again, thank you for joining us at Phoenix Talk.
All right, great, Kim. Thanks for inviting me on short notice here. So I had about a half an hour to pull all this together, so hopefully it'll come across all right. Just a little bit of my background. I'm a Green Bay native. Actually went to Green Bay Southwest High School, and immediately from Green Bay Southwest came to UW Green Bay. And I had a lot of interest at that point in time and ended up ultimately double majoring in business and environmental science, which was a very odd combination at that point in time. A lot of the students I deal with today, they're just trying to get to that 120 credit threshold so they can graduate. It took me 162 credits to complete those two different majors. At this point, it's really kind of the sweet spot, and it's worked out really well. I stuck around here, had the opportunity to complete a master's degree in environmental science and policy, and from here I then went down to Marquette University and got a PhD in civil and environmental engineering. As I was completing my degree down at Marquette, the phone rang one night. Miraculously, somebody that I worked with here at UW Green Bay said, "We've got a couple job openings, please put in your application." And that was one of the initial things. I got involved on projects on campus, met this person, and ultimately that was the person who hired me to my first job. So how you get involved and how you engage, it happens in the community, it happens in the classroom, it happens in a lot of different ways. So please try to do that. My first job was really cool. Worked for the University of Wisconsin Extension, and actually basically went out and helped businesses and industries try and reduce pollution and create less waste and help them recycle. After doing that for a couple years, I was approached by somebody from the Department of Commerce saying, we really like what you're doing. Would you be able to help us nurture some economic development with companies that are trying to use these recycled materials? This was when recycling was kind of in its heyday in the state of Wisconsin. There were a lot of money floating around. And I said, sure, I'd really be interested in that. It combines my business, it combines my environmental background. And they're like, oh, by the way, we've got a $3 million budget for you every year that you can go out and invest in companies in the community. And that was really great for me. Everybody heard of Micro, like Dirtiest Jobs? That was kind of my job for 4 years. I got to see all this really cool stuff all over the state of Wisconsin. And ultimately, a lot of great connections were made. So a company called NCAP, which is just up the road, helped those guys get in business. One of my friends runs the largest computer and electronics recycling business in the state, basically helped him get started. He wrote his business plan while he was going to school. And so those were all really great things. And then lo and behold, a faculty job came open at the university, and I decided to completely change directions. And since day one as a faculty member, in some ways I've kind of felt like a square peg in a round hole. Because a lot of the stuff that I still do is out in the community. It's being engaged in that way. It's not necessarily the pure academic that a lot of people think about when they think about a faculty member. So the fact that I'm now chair of Natural and Applied Sciences is actually a really good fit because I can focus on the middle part of that description, which is the applied part. So again, I'm out in the community, I'm doing a lot of different things. And as I look at the sciences, what we're really trying to do is solve problems for people. That's what science is. It's about solving other people's problems. The really cool thing is these problems can involve chemistry, they can involve biology, they can involve geoscience, there's a business aspect to it. All of those things directly have an impact on the community. So for me, this is a great opportunity, it's a great position. The other really great thing about being in the faculty position now is that I get to work with great students, and Krista is actually one of my students, and it's great to see the things that she's been able to do. She may not say this, but she received the Young Distinguished Alumni Award last spring, so that was a great recognition for her efforts. So again, getting involved is really, really important. And as we look at how we evaluate faculty, essentially we have three major components that we're supposed to partake in. Teaching is obviously the most important one. The second one is scholarship. That's still important to make sure that you have a reputation out there, you're doing good scholarly things that help advance your particular field, your particular discipline. But the third thing that's really, really important as we evaluate colleagues and as we evaluate faculty is service. And that service can take on a number of different roles. It can be serving on committees on campus. It can be serving on committees out in the community. So that becomes really important, and how people decide to balance that service is really up to them as a faculty member. So I've been able to do a lot of community work. One of the things that I'm most proud of is the fact that I chair the Brown County Solid Waste Board. So we basically manage all of the garbage for the entire county, well over 200,000 tons of materials every year. And we take care of the recycling, and we do all that sort of stuff. And we've been very innovative in terms of how we've approached that. So we've actually partnered with Outagamie County and partnered with Winnebago County to try and make the overall system much more efficient. We've tried to provide new services. We've tried to partner with businesses and industries so that we can now recycle more materials. Again, that gets back to some of my early background with my first job. So I think that's all really, really important stuff. So as I look at having an infrastructure in place where we're able to adequately manage what could potentially be a problem, that's a really good thing. One of the other areas that I work a lot in is with ag waste. So we've heard a lot of issues in terms of dealing with manure and runoff and water quality and those types of things. I've worked with a number of farms all over the area on anaerobic digestion to basically produce renewable energy from that manure and try and come up with better ways to manage that manure so we can avoid some of these other problems. It's not necessarily the most glamorous job is out there working with manure, but it's actually really, really interesting. And again, as I look at an anaerobic digester, it's a biological system that depends on chemistry, and it also depends on engineering to move materials and take the biogas and run it into an engine. So it is this problem that involves all these different disciplines, which actually makes it really, really interesting. Some of the farms that I've worked with have won national sustainability awards. They've been featured in National Geographic, places like that. So again, it's nice that the university has a connection out there. It's great for the university, but personally, individually, it's great that I know all these people. I can walk into XYZ companies all over this community because they know that myself and my students are doing great things to help them. That's kind of transpired now into ENBI, which is the Environmental Management and Business Institute, where we have a number of internships that are working at companies all over the area. We've had interns that have worked for the Packers. One of our more notable projects is with Aurora Baycare, the big hospital. So we've had students there for well over 5 years working on their energy team. Our students basically run the energy team for the hospital. They've turned that all over to our students. What a great experience for a student, right? And one of the things that's happened is they've given the university about $500,000 to hire those students and pay those students. Do you guys think they would keep giving us that money if we're not demonstrating value? The idea is we're saving them more than the money that they're paying us to make those changes, and it's actually been really great. A couple weeks ago, we did a big event at the hospital where it was an educational event, basically to highlight all the things that are going on with all their employees, with the idea being that they would then take that back to their own house or to their own family and hopefully be able to save some energy at their own location as well. So again, sharing that message, communicating, educating, those are all really great things. The other less formal stuff in terms of getting involved in the community, the stuff that's really, really important to me, is I'm a baseball coach. And I've been coaching baseball for about 10 years. And it's tremendously fun to see my son and his friends, and I see him out in the community, and I see him out in the classroom, and I see these people growing as individuals, and I see them becoming disciplined, and I see them, you know, moving on to college, and it's really awesome. I also coach bowling, right? These are not glamorous jobs, okay? Because you've always got parents to deal with, you've always got kids that you're not playing them enough, you're playing this kid too much, all those things, but at the end of the day, I know all these people in the community, and if I see them doing something wrong on the streets, I can walk up to them and say, why are you doing that? That's part of being engaged too. It's fostering the next generation so that they understand that this is a community, there is a sense of place, and you need to have some commitment to the place that you actually reside. To me, that's just as important as anything that I do with waste or all that sort of stuff. It's the personal connections. So I would urge you guys, wherever you live, make sure you try and get engaged in your own community. Learn as much about your community as you can. A lot of times you come to college and you learn about all these other foreign, faraway places, and you don't know really that much about your own community. So dig in, do the things that Crystal's doing, make a difference. This is not your original community, but you know, we're really glad that Crystal's adopted Green Bay as a community. So again, make a difference. You know, be a leader out there. Take those opportunities to dig in and do good things. Whether it's environmental stuff, whether it's politics, whatever the case may be, whatever your interests are, channel that into something positive that helps your community and helps everybody that lives in that community, not only today, but tomorrow, and 5 years from now, and 10 years from now, and so on. So the one thing that's kind of interesting for me now is that my young son, who's now a sophomore in high school, he was named to the mayor's high school community advisory team. So there were 4 kids named from 4 different high schools, and he's now doing that. So maybe he can get some of my ideas directly to the mayor now. So, and he may the mayor may listen more to my son than he would to me. So, so again, all that's important. So as a student, I would say, you know, this is a great opportunity. You put some stuff on the resume, but the bigger value is the personal satisfaction of seeing the positive changes that can be made in your own local community. So with that, I'm going to stop and turn it over to somebody who really does something. So.
And he said that I was going to make him look bad. I don't know about that. That's pretty impressive. I also just want to thank Dr. Aaron Weinshank for having me and inviting me. It's always so fun to come back to the university. I'm not from Green Bay, as Dr. Caters alluded to. I'm from the other side of the state. But I came to the university and I just fell in love with this community. I fell in love with the people here. And I'll tell you a little bit more about me, but for just 1 second, I just want to get a raise of hands. Who is from Green Bay? So the rest of you are all from out of the area. That's fantastic. That's wild. It's kind of, I wasn't sure what to expect. But so how many of you currently have plans to stay in the community after you graduate? Anybody? Okay. How many of you just don't know yet? Okay, that's what I thought. Well, okay, so there's a lot of different messages that I thought that I could bring today. There's a lot of different things that I want to respond to that Dr. Caters said, but I had to kind of focus and bring one, and I guess I just want to start by asking you the question, have you ever, and I'll kind of introduce myself a little bit later too, but I had to write this all down. I don't talk in front of people very often, so. But have you ever caught yourself like complaining about the weather? Who doesn't do that, right? We complain about it all the time. Try not to, but you still do it every single day. Have you ever caught yourself complaining about, oh, I don't know, say the results of an election, or, you know, a position a politician took, or something that you're hearing about in the environment that you disagree with, you know, that you're just not happy with? Or maybe it's something even closer to home in your hometown, you know, somebody's cutting parks budgets and you don't agree with that, or somebody is cutting a program that you care about. These are all things that, unlike the weather, you can change. You can actually have an impact. No matter how big or small, you can actually take action to do something about those things. And I think it starts with even just something as simple as yesterday and looking at yesterday as an election. Who voted? I'm not going to ask you who you voted for. That's awesome. If you didn't vote, that is the single first thing that you can do to engage in public life. Sometimes it's like, oh, I don't know who the candidates are. Even if you just familiarize yourself a little bit about what they're doing out there, and oh, I don't have millions of dollars. I can't get into that realm. You can. You vote. That's the first most important step. I can't reiterate that enough. So I just want to put that message out there, and I thought it was very timely. But kind of just coming back, I think locally, nationally, these things are. It's easy to think, oh, a problem's too big or something's, you just don't have enough information, but it's that first step of action, right? So kind of getting back to the environment, I'm a 2008 environmental policy and planning major. I was a 5-year student on the 5-year course. And Dr. Weinshank asked that I mention some defining moments of my time here at UWGB. And that's always something really hard for me to do because there were so many things academically and personally that I experienced while I was here as a student that it's hard to kind of pinpoint. But I'll kind of just focus in on a couple that did have some impact. I had taken a class early on with Dr. Laurel Phoenix, Environment and Society. Is that still taught? I think it's still taught, but have any of you taken that class? Okay, hey, awesome. That's where I kind of really started getting a deeper look into specifically environmental issues and specifically globally environmental issues. And that's what really kind of pushed me to think about like ways that I could get involved. There's all these things going on and you got to be able to do something, right? You can't just be helpless. And so I started exploring, getting more education, started taking some more classes in that area, and started getting involved in just some student organizations. It's not something I started out doing when I got here, but Public and Environmental Affairs Council, PEAK, and SGA, those are two areas where I just kind of started dabbling. And that's where I really started to realize the value of getting involved. We were making changes. We were doing things that were impacting students, that were impacting me, that were impacting our community. And one of the biggest things that I got to be a part of as a student, both a part of PEAK and of SGA, was the implementation of the UPass. I don't know if the UPass is still a program. Oh, good. Okay. So it's still around. I know it's taken some different iterations, but it's something that at the time was, gas prices were getting higher, and we're Eco-U. I just felt like we needed to have free public transportation to get out into the rest of the community for our students. And so that was something that we were pretty excited to complete. We raised the funds. We went to the student government and asked for the SEG fees, and we talked to the chancellor, and we got some funding behind it. And it just took thinking of something that we thought was important, and then getting a group of people who also thought it was important, and just starting to take the steps to make it happen. And more recently, so for the last 7 years, I've worked for Downtown Green Bay and Old Main Street. They're two of the 3 business improvement districts downtown. And improvement districts are essentially entities that are kind of defined by a geographic area. We're nonprofit organizations. I work for both of them. We're a shared staff. And we take resources. The businesses and property owners pay a special assessment on their taxes, and we put those funds back into those areas. And it's our job to get people excited about the downtown, bring visitors downtown and residents, and to put on events and business promotions and recruit and retain people and new businesses, and also care about the first impression and physical improvements. My role, you're probably asking like how this it's all kind of like flowing, and how does it relate to the environment specifically. But in my opinion, without a strong, sustainable downtown, we can't, as a community, be a sustainable community or even be talking about being environmentally friendly. I think we're doing really, really great things. We have a mayor who supports, who hopefully you'll come tomorrow and hear some of the great things that he's doing. Maybe you're already hearing it through your classes or you're following it in the news, but he really cares about having a strong heart, and he'll kind of talk more about that tomorrow, but that's kind of where it starts. And then, it's kind of for me, I do things on a small scale, so I have the opportunity in my job, I have flexibility to, I maintain like our planter programs and some of our green space stuff. So the last couple years, we've tried to take initiatives to introduce native plantings and flowers. So something really small, really, not as big as, I don't know, changing the whole world or whatever, but, we start there and we've experienced or experimented with how we can get things like that into just everyday life. So, that's a significant pollinator benefit. And then on a larger scale, for the last 6 years, I've spent time on the New Leaf Market Cooperative Board of Directors. So New Leaf Market is working on opening a grocery store, a cooperative grocery store in downtown Green Bay that'll feature local, healthy, whole foods at fair prices. So that means fair trade, that kind of stuff. And we have been working over the last 6 years to do that. And it's a very different process than having a single business owner come in and say, I want to do this, I want to open this store, I want to open this business. It's a community-based approach. A lot of people, 820 people, have already bought a membership. They've already committed to this vision. We're now raising the money to do the rest of the project. And it's something where these individuals are going to have a say every time they come and make a purchase at the store. So they're voting with their dollars. They're going to be making changes as to what's being served to our community. So it's a couple different projects, and I know we'll get into a little bit more of the Q&A, but I guess my point is that there are just so many different ways that you can get involved and engage in public life. So you start now, your students, get involved in student organizations, find something that you're passionate about, whether it's the environment or something else. Choose a career that lets you work in this realm every day. But if working in a nonprofit or at a public entity isn't for you, volunteer. I mean, get involved in the baseball leagues or help support a run that you think is important for health and wellness in our community, or get on a board. That's just one thing that I find so awesome about the city of Green Bay and our faculty here at the university. There are so many opportunities. If you have an interest, there are people that can help you get connected to make a difference, to get out there, to do something that you feel, hey, I want to be in this community, I want to make a change, and there's a lot of opportunities to do that. So kind of bringing it full circle, I think the point is that everyone has the opportunity today, right now, to make a change for their community, for a population of individuals, the environment, or themselves. And let's be honest, because part of why I do these sorts of things are all the amazing impacts that you can have on the environment or your community, but also, selfishly, I want to be really proud of the community that I live in, right? I want to know that I'm a part of something that's bigger than myself. And I want to live in a community that cares about the environment, that cares about providing education opportunities and healthcare and, all those sorts of things to our citizens. And I want to live in a community that has a co-op grocery store, and so that's why I'm on the board. And I want to be in a place where we have treasures like Baird Creek. Have any of you been out to the Baird Creek Parkway? Oh, you got to do it. It's a 500-acre gem. It's in the city of Green Bay. It's pretty cool. And I really want a community that has an awesome downtown. And that's a lot of wants, right? So I need to do something about it. I need to get on the boards. I need to take the first steps. I need to be a part of the process. And so I guess what I want to say is that you just have to take that first step, and it's important, no matter how big or small, that we all do something like that. So I guess that's kind of what I'll share for now. I know I've heard that you all have very probing questions, so I guess we can turn it over to.
Yeah, I would just add one thing on Baird Creek. So we've got a faculty member in my unit who's very actively involved in that. And we had a promotion review meeting the other night, and he was saying, well, I've got all these great publications, and I've got this, that, and the other thing. And at the end of the day, we looked at him and said, the legacy that you're going to leave is Baird's Creek. It's been established, it's been improved, and that's what you might be most proud of 25, 30 years from now when you retire from this institution. So absolutely correct.
All right, questions. I'll bring the mic over to you when you have a question. So any questions for our panelists?
I think so.
So I'll get us going today. John, this is going to be directed at you. Tell us about your dirty job. Tell us about the Brown County Solid Waste Board and maybe a challenge or a victory that you've dealt with that would be of interest to just a common citizen in our community.
Again, when most people think about garbage and waste, they think about throwing it out at the curb and it goes away. Okay, and there's a huge infrastructure that's necessary in order to manage that stuff effectively. We've been doing this as the Brown County Solid Waste Board since the early 1970s. This was an effort between City of De Pere and City of Green Bay, because we have the old incinerator, which is still located along Highway 43 just north as you get close to Highway 41 north. The clean air regs were going to change how we were managing waste. So most of that garbage was burned in the 70s. We needed a different alternative. The communities came together and created the Solid Waste Board. Since that time, we've been effectively managing these materials for 24 communities now, which is awesome. A couple years ago, some of you guys may recall that there was a proposal to combust garbage again in this community, right? It was a project that was proposed by Oneida Seventh Generation, and that created a whole bunch of controversy, and a whole bunch of things took place regarding that. There's still a whole bunch of legal action which is ongoing, so I won't say a whole lot on that. But this was looked at as one potential opportunity to manage things in a different way. And as a waste board, we basically asked a whole bunch of different questions, and we were trying to do what was best for the communities long term, okay? That's always my focus as a chairman of a board like that, is what's the best thing that we can do for the community that's going to put us in a good economic situation, put us in a good environmental situation. These are not easy questions all the time, and you do have to ask the tough questions of the people that are coming to you so that you don't make a mistake that costs somebody millions of dollars. And again, we've made some huge investments on recycling. So there's a $12 million facility down in Outagamie County that manages all the recyclables now. We just put in another $1.7 million. So starting on December 1st, you guys will be able to throw basically any container in there that you want. Okay? So all
That's great.
the threes and the sevens and the fives, all that stuff can go into the container now because of a strategic investment that we made to try and keep that stuff out of the landfill. So we're continually improving. We're continually trying to partner with other people, because at the end of the day, my objective is not to fill up a hole in the ground and build the big, dog park or ski hill or whatever it is. As an engineer, I'm trying to effectively use the resources that have been extracted from the environment and use them as many times as I possibly can. So it's a lot of fun. You deal with a lot of different things. In terms of the dirtiest jobs, I've seen just about everything made in the state. I've been to probably 500 manufacturing facilities in every corner of the state of Wisconsin, and you would not believe the really cool stuff that we make in this state. It's awesome. So, but every one of those companies also has some waste issues to deal with, so that there is no perfect manufacturing process at this point.
Other questions you might have? Crystal.
Crystal, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Can you tell us more about the timeline for the New Leaf store
Sure.
in downtown?
Yeah, the timeline is flexible right now. The biggest thing that we're doing right now is raising the funds, which is hard when you don't have, a single person who's fronting the millions of dollars that you need to build and then fill a grocery store. So that's what we're working on. We continue to make really good steps forward, and that's the beauty of getting involved too. You meet so many people who are working so hard on so many different initiatives. There is a team of 20 core people who are working hard on this every single week to make it happen. So I would love to see it open in the next year. Construction, all those sorts of things. Those are all tough things to really pinpoint, especially when the funding isn't all lined up yet. So we're in a capital campaign. We're kind of in the quiet phases, kind of reaching out and seeking donors and writing the grants and stuff. So there's still a little bit of work to be done there, but we're hopefully going to be able to hear some good news soon.
This one is for Mr. Caters. Back to your thing about the solid waste. I know it was kind of big a little while back that eventually we're going to have a dump here in Brown County like they have in Winnebago County. Are there any plans on where they're going to put that, or how you guys decide?
Yeah, so again, I mentioned this collaborative. So Brown, Outagamie, and Winnebago counties actually work together. So we have 2 closed landfills in Brown County. One's on the west side out on West Mason Street past NWTC. The other one is kind of south of De Pere. And so what happened is we thought that it would be much smarter to operate one landfill for all 3 counties as opposed to having 3 landfills operating in every county at the same time. So right now, all of the waste from Brown County is actually shipped down to that Outagamie County landfill. At one point, it was going to Winnebago County. We filled up that landfill. Now we're filling up the Outagamie County landfill. And somewhere around 2020, 2021, we will be opening the new Brown County South landfill, which was actually sited and located back in 1993. And we've been sitting on that resource because we came up with this collaborative agreement. We would have started using that in 2002, 2003, but because we reached out and signed this long-term partnership, we were able to hold on to that asset. It's about 1,500 acres down there. And one of the things that we're looking at doing with that site is not just having it be a landfill per se. What we are looking at doing is trying to put a resource recovery park on the front part of the landfill to extract as many of those valuable resources as we possibly can before the material that still needs to go to the landfill goes to the landfill. As part of the solid waste board, we've got a $100,000 feasibility project which is going on right now to basically analyze all of the technical details associated with that resource recovery park. Because it seems like 2020, 2021 is a long ways away, but if you're looking at designing a multi-million-dollar facility like a landfill, we need to start some of the permit modifications now because the permit that was approved in the early 1990s is going to be far different than what the ultimate design is going to be based on changes in technology. So again, we're trying to be visionary. We're trying to get ahead of the curve. We've all switched over to single stream recycling based on what's going on in the industry right now. People are not putting in as many single stream recycling facilities as they are wet MRFs, basically throwing everything into one pile and separating it at an individual location and not doing the recycling the way we do it now. So again, the technology is going to change. The technology is going to evolve. We have to pride ourselves, much like UW Green Bay prides itself in terms of being ahead of the curve. I'm trying to take that same approach for waste management in our community. I would also note that the chair of the Solid Waste Board is also a UWGB alum. Lisa Bauer-Lotto is also on the Waste Board. She's the environmental specialist at Green Bay Packaging, also an alum. So again, we can see all kinds of UWGB people involved in creating the future, at least for this particular topic.
Hi, my question is for Crystal. I was wondering if you could tell us more about some of the sustainable actions that downtown and downtown businesses are taking, and if it has paid off and how.
Sure. So we, like I said, in my opinion, just about everything we do somehow ties into sustainability. My job specifically, we do quite a few things from expansion of green space. We work on special projects like New Leaf Market is one of them, but also we are working on connecting the East River Trail, where it currently ends at East High School. It's kind of near downtown, and connects to the Fox River Trail. So this is just a 1.2 mile segment of our community along the East River, but it is the most expensive. And there's a reason why that little piece is not connected yet. But we've worked with the city for the last couple of years, actually about 6 years, on slowly starting to pick up the properties along that area. It's a very urban area. So there's a lot of individual business owners and homeowners and property owners that we're working with, but we're getting there. And that's 1 mile in a link that will connect well over 40 contiguous miles of biking and recreational trails. Eventually, there are plans in the city of Green Bay and the surrounding communities to connect the downtown trail system to the West Side Mountain Bay trail system, which is actually an 85-mile system that goes to Wausau. So in the next 10 years, I think we'll see a system that is a very regional system, and that has huge benefits in terms of sustainability and just access. Access is one of the most important parts when it comes to anything like this. If you don't have a trail by you, are you going to use it? You know, so the more that we can get this extended into the community, the more likely it'll be used. Then all sorts of the residual benefits, health and wellness, obesity issues, those all start to see some impact. So that's one example. But then other things, we are constantly working to make downtown a place where people want to live. Right now, under construction are 2 new apartment complexes that'll bring 200 new units downtown. If you're living downtown, you might drive your car less. You might not need to make as many trips, elsewhere. You're going to be hopefully walking to work, or maybe you're catching the bus to school, So there's some reductions in energy and transportation costs. And, the one, I used to live downtown, and what was awesome, I think my WPS bill was like $20 because you are all working together to heat the building. And so it's kind of nice, especially if you're up on the 3rd or 4th floor. But so those are some of the different ways. And I think there are a variety of benefits that come from some of those things. I could talk about some more, but I don't know if we have enough time.
I'm really impressed at how both of you are working on long-term projects that really take some vision and some planning and some real persistence. So thanks for doing that. I guess I have another question for Crystal, because you were more recently a student here. I'm just curious about how you have applied maybe some of the unexpected things that you learned as a student. So not necessarily a class you might say, oh yeah, that lines up exactly with what you're doing, but just more generally, how are you drawing on your education that you earned here?
Sure. I think kind of going back to some of what Dr. Cater said too, as a student here, I really found that the ability to get involved in the community, people were coming in from outside of the university quite frequently, teaching us about what they were doing. That builds connections. And I know it's not exactly tangible in relation to the education component, but it's all part of it. The more involved you can get, the more opportunities open up. And then more directly, as a student, I was allowed the opportunity to work on projects. And so, I'm a program manager now. It's kind of a project manager position, honestly. So those are, I directly use the skills that I learned as a student, getting involved, working on a project on a team. There's a lot of things that you don't, you get into the workforce and you're like, oh, I didn't really teach you that in school. Oh, that's interesting. So, some of these other things that you're doing as a student help give you the experiences to lead on, help open the doors. My internship was through a course that I took with Dr. Caters. I became an intern at Wisconsin Public Service as a renewable energy specialist. That was the direct connection to my current position. And it's amazing how that works. Green Bay is a bigger community, but it's still a very small community too. Yeah, and so there's a lot of people who know a lot of people. So the more you get yourself out there and networked, the better off you'll be too. I know there are other ways too, but I don't know that they're coming right to me, but it was a little while ago, but.
Other questions? I'll ask one since nobody asking. So I think that it's fair to say that both of you are community leaders and experts on these kinds of issues. And I think that one thing that a lot of people who are successful will say is that they had a mentor at some point in their life, somebody who inspired them or who helped connect them to people or careers. So could you talk a little bit about the importance of mentorship to you, and also comment if you see yourself as a mentor now?
Okay. So there's all kinds of mentors along the way. And sometimes you don't know that they're mentoring you. Sometimes they don't know that they're providing great advice. Again, one of my first mentors was the person that called me up and said, we have a job opportunity for you. She would not have called me up if she didn't trust my capabilities. So in that regard, that kind of set my career going forward. Hopefully we all have professors that are mentors or inspirational for us, and I look to a lot of the folks that were on this campus that are now retired, the Jack Days of the world, the Mike Troyers of the world, Bob Wangers of the world, some great people that have been at this institution. I also look back to my major professor at Marquette University. I caught him very near the end of his academic career. I was the only PhD student that he ever had finished in 35 years at Marquette. He was kind of a crusty old engineer, very specific, very detail-oriented, and you weren't going to be done until you were done. But yet we'd go into the laboratory, and he probably taught this lab 30-plus times. And every time he went in the laboratory, it was like he was going to discover the atom or something. He was still able to maintain that enthusiasm, that connection to the students, even though he was at the end, essentially 40 years older than the students that were in his class. To me, that was amazing. It was incredible. I try to do that same sort of thing to my students. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You try to expose them to as many things as you possibly can, because you're never quite sure when that aha moment is going to happen and say, wow, this is really what I want to do for my life. This is really what I want to do for my career. Some people know when they come to college, other people have no clue. And the more things you can expose them to, the better, in my opinion, so.
For me, it's kind of hard to pinpoint a single person. You know, you think back to all the people who have just have a role in your life and who you are becoming. You know, you can say your parents, you can say your grandparents. There's so many people. On campus, we are so lucky at GB. We have incredible professors, and support staff and all the other people who are on this campus that you bump into that are rooting for you to succeed as students. And everybody, I mean, there are so many people, there are so many little things that I took from an individual person that have kind of worked together to help me get to my position now. And currently, I would say some of my coworkers, Jeff Merkis is, if you meet him, he is one of the most enthusiastic people you'll ever meet. And he is just so passionate about our community and our downtown succeeding and why it's important. It is infectious, to say the least. And working with somebody like that every single day for the last 7 years has just had a profound impact on me. And recently, a very good friend and coworker, Molly Vandervest, just joined the university team actually as the assistant development director out at the Crest Center. She was another one. If you get a chance to meet her, go over and make time. She'll talk with anybody. She is a fantastic role model and mentor. And I can't say enough positive about her. And if we can't have her downtown, there's no other place I'd rather have her. So I guess that's what I would kind of say about mentors in my life.
Other questions you might have? You can't let them off this easy. You got to ask them a question.
John, right? Okay. Earlier you talked about recycling and reusing some of the materials that are recycled, correct?
Yep.
And I guess I was just wondering how you guys are kind of reaching out to the community about showing how to, because you can have really good facilities that recycle really well and actually do reuse most of the material that is recycled. But if you don't reach out to the community, how is that going to be actually progressive? So I guess I was just wondering how you would.
Yeah, I mean, that's a continual challenge. Again, in these days of fairly tight budgets, we don't have a huge marketing staff at the Port and Resource Recovery. We changed the name, actually. We're still the Solid Waste Board, but the title has changed to Port and Resource Recovery. We use a lot of the conventional methods, the webpage, the social media. There's an annual recycling guide that comes out in the newspaper every year that basically blankets the whole region. As we roll out this new, capability to recycle 3 through 7s and that sort of stuff, there's going to be a bunch of effort there. There was just an article in the paper the other day talking about the fact that we're going to do some pilot food waste collection. So the organic material is the next step as well. So again, I always tell my students to read the newspaper, and I'm amazed by the relatively small number of students that actually read the newspaper. There's some good stuff in there sometimes, and that's one media that we can use for free. It doesn't cost us anything. Again, the other thing is, we show up at events, we show up at schools, you guys are now to the point where you've always recycled for your whole life. If you're old like me, that was something that had to be trained. It all started back in the late 80s and 90s when we were already teenagers. You guys have done it your whole life. You're used to it. In some ways, the kids now train the parents to do it the right way. So there's a lot of that involved, too. But it is a challenge. We are doing some educational work with this new pilot. There will be an opportunity for some students to come sort through some recyclables next April. If anybody's interested, we'll be doing a waste characterization study to basically measure what the improvements have been with this ability to collect these additional plastics. So there's a lot of fun stuff. So Chris Martin's class got involved in this last year. He's got a Hugging Trees class, and basically those students ended up sorting out recyclable materials, weighing it, measuring it, seeing how it's really done. That's kind of the badge of honor in the waste industry, is to participate in a waste characterization study. So that's where you cut your teeth, so very, very important that we continue to do that, and, hopefully it's a consistent message. That's the main thing. You want to keep it as simple as you possibly can. What can I throw in the bucket and what has to go in the garbage can? That's really what we're after.
Can I just make a quick comment just to expand on that? Any of these sorts of issues or efforts in our community, that's one of the bigger challenges, is how do you help get the word out about what's going on, what the need is, or the really good things that are happening. And your interest and attention, and I guess your time is being demanded of so many different things. People are coming at you trying to give you information for just so many different things, so you kind of have to seek it out a little bit too. But that's just one thing that's kind of always a challenge, and you reach out through all those entities, but that's something that a little bit, if you're interested in something, you kind of have to dig a little bit for it too, and take that kind of initiative, I found.
Other questions? I'll ask one more of Crystal.
Okay.
What is the most challenging thing about your job, and what is the most rewarding?
The most, okay, there are probably many things, but just one of the most challenging thing is, how do you decide? There's so many priorities, right? There's so many things you want to do in a day, but you only have so many hours. And it really is hard. It's hard to say, well, I've got to focus, I've got to put my time and energy on this one thing before I can move on to the next, because if you're all over the place, it's just, you're not going to get anything done. And that's what I find is really difficult. And sometimes it's hard. You really have to be able to articulate why something is important. And sometimes that's not the easiest thing either. And so I think those are some of the things. And sometimes it's just going to be a hard day. You're working hard all the time to try to make good things happen. And sometimes you're going to have setbacks, but sometimes you're going to advance and a project's going to be completed and you are going to feel better than you've ever felt. So that's one thing. What was the second part of your question?
Most rewarding.
Oh, most rewarding. Oh, probably that part, right? Where you complete a project and you see this huge impact. So I just want to mention one project. It kind of fell into our laps this summer. Another part of my work is beautification, and the Old Main Street District is really working to become an arts district. We've got like 13 galleries. We do events that are related to the arts. This summer we had an artist approach another community organization that we were involved with and said, hey, we've got funding. We want to do this Native American motif mural. Can you help us find a location? To have an art piece funded is huge, so that was awesome. We were the recipients of it. It's at the NWTC Artisan and Business Center downtown on Cedar Street. It's a project that happened practically overnight, and sometimes those great opportunities just fall into your lap and you drop the priority list, as I was just saying you need to have. And it was just so fun having this artist come to our community, watching the community be a part of his process, get this mural up on the wall and see that impact. That is so rewarding. There's not a lot of words that you can put to articulate what that feels like. It was just a really cool thing to be a part of.
Last call for questions. No other questions? All right, well, let's give our panelists a round of applause. Keep in mind also we have another, the last of our Phoenix Talks is tomorrow at the same time, same place, so be sure to check that one out as well. If you'd like to come up here and introduce yourself and expand the social network that Crystal talked about as being important, feel free to do that as well. We'll see you next time.
Great.